Okay, so as ever, we are, here and looking to see who's around, but I'm proposing, rather than telling us what you have seen, tell us if you're going to be able to see the lunar eclipse tonight. What's the weather prediction going to be? So we'll start with you, Bob.
Well, I was expecting cloudy skies, but it's sunny right now. So I'm in Michigan. I'm hopeful. You all know how Michigan is.
Chris Kennedy, where are you, and what's the sky prediction for tonight?
Mostly cloudy to partly cloudy. So there's a chance. It would be nice to see some sort of celestial event here in New York City, so I might as well give it a try.
It's one of the few you could see from the city.
Exactly.
Jim Wren, what's the prediction for your area?
Okay, Jim here in Phoenix, and it's going to be off and on showers. We might get lucky that the next storm might move in, or it may be delayed. We're just not sure at this time.
Okay. Carmen, will you be able to see it in Uruguay? Oh, you're muted. Carmen, there you go.
No, because we are in the typical end of the summer stormy weather.
Okay.
So we are full of clouds.
I was also not quite sure if you were within the zone that could still see it, because you're a bit south and east of the best spot.
Might be, but the sky has the last word. And it
It's always true. Okay, James Gregory.
It's 47 degrees here in Manchester, and they're expecting cloudy skies tonight, unfortunately.
Of course. Joe, Reverend Joe, or Deacon Joe.
Yeah, same as Jim Wren. We've been skeptical. It's been saying it's going to rain, but it hasn't. But yeah, the clouds are moving in, they say. But it's clear right now. So.
Okay. I'm reading this GR Faith?
Yeah. I'm in Arlington, Virginia, and the weather forecast is telling me partly or mostly disappointing. And my spot check of the weather is not encouraging.
It's too bad. Linda, what about you guys?
Well, we're in Allentown, Pennsylvania. It's going to be pretty cloudy tonight, but we'll see.
Okay, you never know. Celia?
Boston is looking clear, so hopeful.
All right. And Judge Group Larry.
Sorry, I haven't changed my name since.
Explain to people why you've got that name.
We do remote judging of science fair, and that was just this last week. Gave out 5 awards for the Vatican, other things. And so you have to put your name down and your group down, etc. And it's 61 degrees, supposed to be showery tonight, so probably won't see anything.
It's ironic that we may have a better shot of it at Michigan than you do in Tucson. Fernando, of course, you're in the wrong part of the world, so it'll be daytime when the eclipse happens. But what's the weather like? I'm assuming you're in Germany.
Yes, the weather forecast doesn't look good. It's cloudy, and in the forecast is rain. And we are going to miss most of it, but we still should be able to see the beginning, assuming that it was clear enough, which will not.
Assuming it was clear, right. And Justin?
Watertown, Connecticut. We may need some divine intervention. It's supposed to be partly cloudy.
Well, as long as it's partly clear, that's, are you an optimist or a pessimist? Is it partly cloudy or partly clear?
Partly clear.
All right. Katie.
Hi. Well, it's odd here in Pasadena, California, where it's 48 degrees, and there's 5 inches of snow up on the mountain just above my house at Mount Wilson, and the sky doesn't look so good, but maybe it could be partially clear by this evening, so we'll see.
Okay. Well, I take it this is well received waterfall that you're finally getting.
In a way, it's been kind of excuse my French, a crappy 2025. with fires in the Pasadena and Palisades.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, with the rain, if it's heavy rain, it'll be flooding and all the toxic, anyway,
Yeah.
it's great and horrible.
Hmm.
You know, you do what you do.
Okay. And Rob, how are things in Tucson?
Pretty good. I think we're the exact forecast calls for there to be a moon-shaped hole right over the moon, like right when totality hits. So that I'm quite confident that will be the case.
Okay, perfect, perfect. I just ask in passing, Rob, of course, is with our Jesuit community, and Brother Tom was in the hospital with pneumonia. How is he doing?
I saw him a couple days ago. He seemed to be in a little bit better spirits. He's sleeping a little bit better. So those are
I
all good
actually
signs.
spoke with him just before this meeting, so
Mhm.
it's likely that he'll be discharged today and moved to a rehab facility, is in
Mhm.
the same campus. So yeah,
Okay, good to know that progress is happening. And Jill,
Yeah.
we're talking about the weather and whether you're going to have a chance to see the eclipse tonight.
Well,
Or did we lose you? There you are.
I'm here. Hi. I am in Shelton, Connecticut, which is not too far from Watertown, and now it's perfectly clear. So I'm optimistic that I'll see something.
Okay, great. Paul, why don't we turn it over to you and let us know what's happening at the VAT?
well, right now we are expecting some more snowfall. It's been the same kind of pattern for the last 2 weeks, I think. We got a total of maybe a foot of snow. Just to give you a perspective, for the drought conditions to be declared okay, on Mount Graham, we need about 8 to 10 feet of snow. So,
You have how much?
and we have about a foot and a half.
Okay.
So it's not very good. It's supposed to snow again tomorrow and today. So yeah, basically when it comes to the telescope, we still have these issues with the derotator. Now there is a we know kind of what what to do when it comes to the intermittent error. We had an intermittent error that we couldn't reproduce. Obviously, whenever somebody approached the telescope with an oscilloscope, the thing just started working perfectly. So
naturally,
yeah. So we are going to replace the encoders and on the derotator and basically so next Monday I'll take use the opportunity of one more or less clear night in the week to put things back together. Last Monday we did a pointing model, which was quite successful. And with a pointing model, the telescope goes backwards and forwards a lot. It basically looks at stars that are spread throughout the sky. So the derotator got a huge workout, and it worked. But I mean, there are vibrations, but small ones. So we did manage to find with an oscilloscope that one of the encoders is a bit flaky. So changing the encoders is really called for, and hopefully next Monday we'll get back to the old encoders while we're waiting for the delivery of the new ones, because that'll take 5 weeks or something. So anyway, it's all great fun. Everybody is kind of hoping that it will snow more, but we shall see how that goes. And because
we just need some more important observations that absolutely must be done, and that'll bring the snow.
Well, one measure that has always worked very well is to schedule Jean-Baptiste to go up.
Yes.
So his run starts on the 24th, so I presume there will be a blizzard.
Excellent. I see one more person joined, but I don't see him on the panel here, which is Alfred. I don't know if you can hear us, Alfred, call in and let us know what the weather's like. I'm assuming you're in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Ah, well, I meant hearing him. Okay. But anyway, with the derotator, it's meant that we've not been able to do science for the last couple of weeks. I take it that's.
Yeah. And in fact, the moment that the thing started being really bad was when we had a group of people affiliated to the Northern Arizona University supposed to come. And one of them comes from Seattle. So I had to call them off. Basically, we have some to be scheduled time later in the semester, so I offered them that instead. Anyway, so essentially, the further the observer needs to come from, the more likely it is that the telescope will misbehave, obviously.
Of course. Happens all the time. Well, like all of these things, you don't miss it until it's not there. And I think having to live without the telescope for the last month has made us a little more aware of how nice it is to have when we have it. But presumably, with all of these new encoders and things, it will all be better than ever.
Well, you know how it is. Basically, we changed a lot of things on the telescope over the last year, and there's still a lot of 30-year-old equipment that we rely on. And yeah, so who knows what will fail next? I'm beginning to be a little bit of a, you know, how shall I put it, blasé about it, because I can't sustain this level of stress long term.
Right.
Anyway, I'm looking forward to hearing from Juan Pablo, because I remember him from a summer school, and I can't recall, was that 2003?
Well, yes, let's then launch into this, because this is, of course, the featured speaker is Juan Pablo Marrufo-del-Toro.
I actually had hair at the time.
Indeed. And you've been a friend and an associate of the Vatican Observatory for quite a while. So let's start off with, actually, Juan Pablo, introduce yourself, and then I've got some great questions for you.
Oh, good. I was expecting that. Your great questions, man. Thank you. Thank you so much for the invite, and great to see everyone here again. So when Guy asked me to do this, brother Guy, I asked him what I'm going to talk about. He said, well, just talk about what you do and who you are. So this is a meetup, right? So let's do that. I made just a few pictures on a slideshow, and I'm going to try to present them here. Hopefully it will work. Oh, I cannot share the pictures on my screen.
Oh, that's Bob. You're the one who owns this, right?
Go
So
ahead.
I think you
Good try now.
Okay. Work. Not
there we go.
go, and then let me put it in the presentation mode. So what do you see?
Yep, you see the screen. Looks
Yep, you're
good.
Perfect. Okay, so hopefully this will work. So this is a picture I took of the night sky just with my phone in Australia, and it just reminded me of the first time when I was in college that I felt the awe of the sky. I studied in the Jesuit University of Guadalajara in Mexico. I'm from Mexico, and this picture reminds me of the first time I saw the night sky, and I just felt that inspiration, that awe, that feeling of grandeur of the cosmos while taking an astronomy class there, and I just fell in love with space. And I met a Jesuit there. He was a guest speaker who came to my college from the Vatican Observatory. He came to give a talk on faith and science. I was studying science at the time. His name is Father Manuel Carreira from Spain. You guys probably remember him, know him.
Father Manny, yes.
Yeah, Father Manny. I believe he passed away a couple of years ago, 3 years ago.
I think about 5 years ago, yes.
Yeah, right. So I met him there. Here's a picture I took with him. This is at the Vatican Observatory in Rome, at that summer school in 2007. We were talking about that. I met him again there. But anyway, I put that picture of him because he was kind of one of my inspirations to study more science and to continue my my Jesuit journey, basically, when I met him, he sort of inspired me well, he made me realize that it's possible to be a good priest, a good Jesuit, and also a good scientist, which is what I wanted to do. I didn't know what to do in my life, and when I met Manny Carrera, I was like, "Oh, you can do all that? Okay, well, let's give that a shot." So I entered the Jesuits in 2003, and that means I moved from Mexico to Portland, Oregon, to do my Jesuit novitiate, my Jesuit training, basically after I finished my science degree in college.
Well, let's stop here and ask, what was your connection to the Oregon Jesuits? Why did you wind up joining them? Where did you meet them?
That's a good question. When I was in the vocational process in Mexico, in the Mexican province, I met a scholastic from the Oregon province. He was studying his philosophy there in the Mexican province as a foreigner. And he is the one who invited me to see his novitiate in the Oregon province. So I talked to my spiritual director and my vocation director there in Mexico. And yeah, they told me, yeah, if you have the time and the possibility to go visit that novitiate, go for it. You are discerning, so let's find out where the spirit is moving. So I visited the novitiate in Portland, and some Jesuits in Oregon, and I really had a great time. I remember in the airplane back, like 4 hours from Portland to Guadalajara or so. I really was just thinking, I had a great time. It was a great visit, wonderful Jesuits, but I'm not gonna do this. I'm gonna join the Mexican province and the Mexican Jesuits where my family is, where my culture is, where all my friends are. I don't wanna be that far from home. This is a very different country and culture. But in my prayer, it was the opposite. When I prayed about being a Jesuit and met with my spiritual director about being a Jesuit, I felt deeply moved by my experience in the United States by that short visit. And it's when my spiritual director did tell me, you know what, you have to trust your prayer. We have to learn to trust prayer. It make no sense, but that's where prayer is leading, and that's what we should do. So you should apply to the Oregon province. And if they accept you, that means that's the confirmation of that prayer, right? Because they're also praying for you. So I did that basically against rationale, but following my prayer, turning my application to the Oregon province, and I was accepted, and then I moved back to join the novitiate. But that issue of trust, right? That's when I was challenged to trust my prayer and God's will, basically. And I'm sure
So what's this picture? I'm sorry, I had sprung you away from your talk here, so go back and tell us about this picture.
Sorry, go back. Tell us about what? Oh, the picture.
The picture, yeah.
Those are my classmates. The two other ones are my classmates who entered with me, and behind me is my formators back in 2003. Nobody else is. I mean, of my classmates, both of them left. The only one who remains in the society from that class. And then I went to study philosophy at Loyola Chicago. We studied philosophy as Jesuits. And in that I managed to do part of my ministry, my apostolate as a docent and volunteer for the Adler Planetarium in Chicago. For those of you who have been to Chicago, know the Adler Planetarium. So that's a picture of me when I was a young Jesuit, showing the night sky to a family there, some visitors at the planetarium. I forgot what we were watching, but that was part of what I was doing at night for my ministry, and I loved it. I started to love the promotion of sciences and to show other people the wonders of the sky. Then I applied to the Vatican Observatory summer school, and that I was accepted into, and I went, and I had a great time meeting people. So this is 2007, and I believe Fernando was there. Fernando Cameron was there as an adjunct professor in that summer school. So those are some pictures from it with Pope Benedict and part of the friends I I met there in the summer school. And part of that, I remember helping after that, staying and help Richard Boyle. Is Rich in the meeting? No, right?
No, he's asleep right now.
Okay. Helping Rich Boyle, I remember that, yeah. Do stellar photometry using data he had taken from the VAT. And he was teaching me basically how to do photometry properly, and that was really good. I really enjoyed that work. And I was also helping doing some like blogging and pictures and some PR there. So that was a great thing. Continuing my formation as a Jesuit, I taught science and math at Seattle Prep, but I got a pilot's license also, and the Jesuits in their wisdom sent me to use it in Alaska. So I went to fly around Alaska, going from village to village with a deacon from the Diocese of Fairbanks. And we were just flying to these villages to do communion services and baptize people and marry the unmarried and bury the dead. And he was also an engineer, and Deacon Paul Perrault, I'm still in contact with him. He was also an engineer, and he was fixing his job was to fix the chapels and be on the maintenance of the chapels and the rectories of the church in Alaska. So I helped him with what I could, right? That was his helping guy.
Were you there in the summertime or the wintertime?
So this was from, let's say, late April till September, so summer, yeah.
But you were able to see the sky then, right?
Not much. I mean, just a little bit of the night sky, but pretty much, it was bright daylight most of the time. Sometimes at 1 a.m. there would still be daylight in June. So I really did not see much of the northern sky until September, when it started to get a little dark.
Did you get any auroras?
I did not. No, did not see.
No, you were there the wrong period.
Yeah, that was bad luck. I have to go back. Yeah, I did not. And studied theology at Berkeley, and at the same time I studied some astrophysics at UC Berkeley, the school right next door to the Jesuit Theologate. And I was ordained a priest in 2015, right there by Bishop Gomez. Something interesting when I entered, and you may have, when I entered the Jesuits, I didn't know if I wanted to be a brother or a priest. I just wanted to be a Jesuit. And I think I told you that before. And I entered the Jesuits to be a Jesuit. And basically indifferent. I discerned the priesthood basically when I was in Regency, because then I had to decide whether I wanted to study theology or something else. So I decided to become a priest basically through discernment also. So I got ordained a priest in 2015, and it's been good. I like being a priest. I enjoy it. And after ordination, I was assigned to Phoenix, to Brophy College Prep to teach, which been a perfect fit, because the sky is clear in Arizona, and I'm close to the Vatican Observatory, and we can do really, really cool work here. So that's part of the teaching I've been doing in the last few years. I've been here in Phoenix, showing the students the picture on the left. We're looking at a transit. I think it's the transit of Mercury, a couple years ago, and the picture on the top right too is another telescope looking at the transit. And then in the lower one is one of the telescopes in Lowell Observatory. I take my students on field trips to observe from Lowell, actually. That's the Pluto telescope, the one that discovered Pluto with that old plate there. They don't let you observe through that anymore. It doesn't work anymore, actually, because they don't make those plates anymore. But it's cool to see. But we observe from another telescope there. They let us use the Clark or the Dyer to observe, which is, a fantastic, fantastic experience for the students. I went to Jesuit tertianship in Australia, where I did get to enjoy the night sky a lot. The night sky is beautiful, and you may remember this telescope guy.
Oh yes,
the Toddy telescope. That is at Seven Hill, South Australia, which I believe in your book, Turn Left After Orion, is the one you used to write the.
Yeah, I should tell the story behind that telescope.
Yeah, please.
When we were doing the fourth and fifth edition of Turn Left at Orion, that Dan Davis and I arranged to stay with the Jesuits at the retreat house in Seven Hill, which is 2 hours north of Adelaide, in the middle of wine country. This was the area that everyone thought would be settled because it was the most fertile part of Australia. And then they discovered gold in Melbourne and everybody left there. So what was going to be the Jesuit school was actually never finished. It's only half a building. And they've turned it now into the last functioning Jesuit winery and a retreat house. So Dan and I went there and we arranged, I wrote over the internet to a telescope dealer in Sydney so we could buy a Dobsonian telescope and have it shipped out there. And I explained to the guy, what we wanted it for. And he wrote back saying that he was a Jesuit graduate. He'd gone to the Jesuit High School in Sydney, and he refused to sell us a telescope.
Oh, yeah.
Instead, he donated it. And he added this plaque to Father Toddy, who had taught him Latin and was a great influence in his life. So it's now the Toddy telescope, and you can see that plaque in the picture there. Well, the first time that Dan and I went was in the middle of our summer, their winter. And after 2 weeks there, the local pastor said a mass of thanksgiving because the two Americans had single-handedly ended the drought. We had 2 weeks of rain, never a chance to do any observing. So we arranged to go back to Australia. I had burned up all my frequent flyer miles for the first trip, so we actually had to spend money for the second trip. But we flew back in December, hoping the weather would be different. Of course, it's summer there and hot and a lot of, flies and the like. But again, cloudy until the very last night. We had to get on a bus that was going to take us to the airport at 8 in the morning. And we were up all night, desperate to observe everything that was in the book. We saw all of that's in our book. We saw one night, and it was just glorious observing. So the telescope finally got into its own.
Wow, yeah, that's a beautiful story. So when I showed to Seven Hills, South Australia, to do my retreat, I asked if there was a telescope. And they said, oh yeah, we have a telescope that brother guy left here. Let me show it to you and you see if it still works, because nobody has used it in years. So there it was in the box and everything, and it's been working. It worked for me great. So I used to do my midnight meditation, from 2 to 3:30 a.m. just looking at the night sky with that telescope. I went through everything in your book I could find, actually, because your book is there too.
What were the things that you enjoyed the most of the Southern Hemisphere?
Well, that whole area of the Magellan Clouds and 47 Tucana and the Southern Cross and the Jewel Cluster, the Omega Centaurus Cluster.
My feeling is that the naked eye skies are better in the north, but the telescope, the small telescope objects are much better in the south. There's just all the things that you mentioned. Eta Carina is mind blowing.
Eta Carina is beautiful. The Tarantula Nebula, oh my
gosh, yes.
Remarkable, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I enjoyed that a lot. The other picture is at the VAT with Chris Corvalli outside the Vatican the Vatican telescope in Tucson. That was during the 30-year anniversary, I believe.
Right.
Years ago. And then in the last one, I forgot if that's the eclipse we watched, guy, in Indianapolis, or I think that's a lunar. That's the annular one. That must be the one I watched from New Mexico.
That's right. We were together for the eclipse just a year ago in April.
Yeah, just a year ago in April in Bloomington. That was really good. That was a great experience. Yeah. I wonder if Father Salpe's here in the meeting. He's the one who hosted us. He sometimes comes to these meetings. Father Tim,
right,
is here.
Well, thanks for the slideshow. Now I get to grill you. Oh, you've got more pictures.
This is the last one. Okay. Other things I do here, I'm a priest, right? I do masses from time to time at that parish, at the parish we have here. I coach the mountain bikers at Brophy. And sometimes we mountain bike at night, actually, and we get to watch the sky, just like biking at night, turning off the lights and watching. And I moderate the aviators club, the students who want to be pilots. So that's us flying a glider out here in the desert of Arizona and showing my students about the beauty of flight too. And finally, here's a picture of I took this picture from Phoenix, actually, of M46 with a telescope a good friend David gave me. That I think Rob saw that telescope, a unistellar telescope, which basically is a astrophotography telescope. So I still continue, being marveled at the grandeur of the universe and the sky, and still my passion, and I love teaching it. I love teaching about it. So I'm teaching astronomy here right now, and that's what I have. Yeah.
That's what I wanted to actually talk to you about specifically, teaching astronomy to high school kids.
Mm-hmm.
The question all of us with gray hair are always wondering is, what are these kids like nowadays? How receptive are they, and what has surprised you about what they know or what they don't know about astronomy? So first of all, just how popular has the class been? It's not a requirement. So I guess anybody who's taking the class is doing it because they want to.
Yeah, it's an elective basically. It's not required. It is
How many
popular.
students do you get?
Sorry, what's up?
How many students do you get?
I have right now 14.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Good. Yeah. I have 14. And part of the thing they say when they enroll is, they say, oh, I thought it's gonna be easy. I didn't know there was gonna be a lot of math. And I kind of like do, some calculations of, orbits, gravity, and waves, and distances to the stars, and trajectories of asteroids, and so they get like, oh, I didn't know there was so much math. So kids started to tell, yeah, the class is cool, but there is a lot of math. So, but it's still popular, and the kids, what they love is just going out and going to the field trips we do to Lowell Observatory, and watch the night sky. Sometimes we watch here from Brophy campus. I ask them to turn off the lights of the baseball field, and sometimes we just watch from here for a night or two. And it's a good thing to compare how is it the scene from here versus the scene from Flagstaff. So they get to see the difference in light pollution too. But something what they're more curious about right now is actually aliens. They all just want to talk about aliens and extraterrestrials and are the UFOs real, and can we travel to other planets, right? All the sci-fi stuff. That's what they are a lot of very very interested about. I still show them that video I filmed with Lynn Rothschild. Remember that way back then?
Which we had a link to in the announcement for this. Yeah.
Yeah, so I show them that, and it's still good to see that. It's a little outdated, but it's still good. So, but that's what they're more curious about, more than the physical aspects of the universe, I guess. They are more interested in the life.
Do you get people asking about black holes?
I do. Yes. I do get people asking about, Father, are black or wormholes, black holes real, or wormholes, are they a thing? And sometimes I haven't watched those movies like Interstellar or Contact. Right? But yeah, they are interested about like the theory, basically, all this theoretical
Right.
aspect of astronomy.
What is your goal? What do you want the students to walk out of at the end of the last class that they didn't have when they walked in at the beginning of the first class?
You know what? I guess my goal is for them to realize that the universe is beautiful and is purposeful. That the universe has a purpose, an intention, and is open to so many possibilities, and full of opportunity, and full of hope. Besides the knowledge they gain about the constellations and the stars and the planets, hopefully my goal is that they walk out with a sense of gratitude for the universe, that they walk out inspired and grateful for the beautiful world. As the Eucharistic prayer says, we thank you, God, for this beautiful world that you have made for us. That is
How
my
do you tell if they've captured that? What do you ask?
Well, I mean, when they observe through the telescopes, or when I ask them, so what do you like about this? What do you? They say, Father, I just never looked at the moon through a telescope. That was just amazing. Or the planets, when they see Saturn for the first time, or Jupiter and its bands for the first time. That's when I can tell that they are getting there. And they're still kiddos, right? And for them it's sometimes so hard to express. Sometimes you see their mouth open, right? And that's enough sometimes. When their mouth just opens and they say nothing, sorry. That's
Do you
when
have them
probably
write essays, or is it more standard testing? How do you actually grade a student in a class like that?
There's some tests, right? Because we have to test them, and I have to evaluate that they are actually learning. So yes, I have them do tests. Not really difficult, hopefully. What is the gravitational pull between this star and this other star? This is their distance, right? Simple. Or calculate the velocity of Phobos. This is the orbital radius. Or when in our unit of astrobiology, what are the conditions for life, and what do we know about life in the universe. But I asked them to do a project. Basically, their final project is pick up a topic that you found interesting in astronomy or in space sciences, or anything you learn or want to learn, and do a deep, research about it, and present it to the class, and they have to answer, follow parameters like why you find this interesting, why is this meaningful to you, and what do you hope to do with it in the future. Basically, that's their main assessment, a class project. It's individual, it's not by groups, it's individual project.
Right. But that seems to be where they talk about the aliens.
That is when they talk about the aliens and the black holes and the wormholes, and a kid talked about, once the relationship between the Nazca lines and the aliens. So sometimes they go way off. But it's fun. It's a fun thing to do in the class too.
Well, I know you also do a lot of outreach in the Phoenix area besides to students. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I used to do these. I still do these ambassador talks, basically to promote faith and science, basically.
Where do you give those?
Sometimes here at the parish, or like here the Knights of Columbus have sometimes like guest speakers, and they invite me to do something here at their parish. I was invited once by other parishes, by St. Thomas the Apostle Parish here in Phoenix, to give that talk as part of their speaker series, to talk about faith and science. Basically, they are curious about faith and science, and sometimes just by teaching science while being a priest, that sometimes is just enough outreach. When people comes to the school and they meet me, like, they're looking at for schools for their kids, and sometimes they talk to me, and they say, so Father, what do you teach here? I say, oh, I teach science, I teach astronomy and physics. They get a little, surprised, let's say, that I'm not teaching religion or history or ethics, or philosophy or something like that. I'm science. I'm teaching science. So sometimes just by saying, yeah, I'm a Jesuit priest and I teach science, that sparks great conversations. And I do try to bring some science to my homilies. Sometimes when I'm preaching, I do talk a little bit about, like the speed of light, or the possibilities of life in the world, or sometimes I use some, when we saw the eclipse, right? That gave me so much preaching material about the light and darkness, and I use the eclipse as a prompt to that, of how we get sometimes engulfed in this darkness. But the light comes right after, as when I was watching the eclipse. So I use a lot of science in my homilies, and that's also part of that outreach, right? To bring science to the faith, and just stargazing trips sometimes. Just organize observing nights here with the faculty and staff. So hopefully, if today the sky is clear, we'll watch the eclipse here from campus I'm just gonna say I'm gonna be here with a couple telescopes, and late at night the lights will be off. If you wanna come watch, please come watch. And usually I'll get 3-4 faculty members who wanna come and watch. So I try to do that, although in the middle of my teaching and all the retreat work I do, because I'm also directing the student retreats. So.
Oh my! Do you ever get to use your Spanish? Do you rely on your Mexican heritage?
Mostly for masses, but I have not really been given, science talks in Spanish. No, actually, during one of the novena talks here at the parish, I did talk about faith and science in Spanish. It happened once.
Because I was just curious if the questions that people come from the Hispanic community are different from the ones that come from the Anglo community.
That's a good question. I guess the questions from the Hispanic community are more in the areas of faith, let's say, and I guess they have more of a disconnect between science and faith in that kind of community, because in the Hispanic community, I guess the belief is that science is more questioning faith, basically, rather than helping the faith. So that's some outreach that probably has to be done more thoroughly.
And I guess the last thing I want to just ask is something that anyone who goes into religious life has to deal with. How did your family react? How did they react to you being an astronomer? How did they react to being in the United States? How did they react to you saying you wanted to be a Jesuit?
Wow. React to being an astronomer. That was good. They kind of were expecting it, because I always loved the space. They bought me in my little first telescope a little Celestron 60 millimeters, refractor. The lens, yeah, refractor when I was a kid, and they were not surprised that I wanted to study, space and astronomy and physics, but they were, very surprised when I decided to enter religious life. That was a shock for them, actually. Basically because, it's not something that people do right now, sadly. It's not a common decision. Even though it was 22 years ago, it's still been seen as fairly uncommon. My dad was actually angry for a while. My mom was okay, but sad, let's say, because moms are moms, right? And she wanted me to be close by. So my mom was telling me, okay, it's okay if you want to be a priest, but why don't you just join here the Archdiocese of Guadalajara, so you are close by? And she could not understand my answer very well, because I told her, I don't know if I want to be a priest, I want to be a Jesuit. And that's a difference there at that time, right? I'm not sure I want to be a priest, but I want to be a Jesuit, I want to be religious. And the Jesuits are offering me that option, and that's why I'm a Jesuit, and I think the right thing is to go to the United States to do that.
Right. Do you have siblings? Do they have grandkids?
I have 2 older brothers, and they have grandkids. So they have kids. So my mom, my dad is deceased, but my mom has 4 grandkids right now. And I have a younger brother. He's still single.
Okay.
Yeah, so there are the grandkids.
So there wasn't that kind of pressure, at least, to keep the family name going.
No, it was not that much of a pressure to have grandkids, because my older brothers took care of that.
Okay, so we're now in the last 5 minutes or so. If people have questions about the work you've done or the kinds of reaction, Deacon Joe.
Yes, Juan Pablo, we've known each other. You've been my spiritual director, and I was a fellow teacher at Brophy. And when I encountered students, and this is my question, a lot of them said, well, I believe in science, but not in faith. You answered somewhat, and in your person, I think you answered that question. but is there an answer that you would give at this point? What is the connection between faith and science, and how does a student learn that?
Yeah, that's a theme here, and I guess depends on how the student asks it, but let's say the general answer is, God give us the gift of intelligence and the gift of understanding and wisdom to understand the universe and to explore the universe. And I try to compare them kind of like to a novel, right? When you read a novel, when you read a book, you learn something about the author. You learn something about who made this article or this novel, this book, or when you see a painting, you probably have a glimpse of who did this, or you can read about who did this and what was the inspiration. So same thing with the universe, with the sky, with the stars, or with the physical laws, right? The more you learn about the laws of the universe, the laws of motion and energy and whatever physical or astronomical reality, you learn something about the author of it, which is God. So we are hopeful that the more you study the world, the more you know about the creator of that world. And science should bring you closer to God, not farther from God. And I tell them, to me, science has brought me closer to God, not farther away from God. The more I study science, the more I love God, and the more it increases my faith. And I hope that does that for you too. Hopefully that works. So yeah, that's what I say. And that's why and God wants us to study. God wants us to learn. God wants us to know more. God wants us to become a better species, right? To grow in wisdom and in truth. Truth is a virtue. And God wants us to know the truth. And to know the truth, we need to learn more. We need to study. We need to process data. We need to observe. We need to compare things. And science does that for us.
Bob Trembley in the note is asking about what is the role of faith in science? I mean, how much does science depend on being able to trust and have faith in things?
I mean, my answer will be that, I mean, at least to me, faith makes me more curious, basically. Faith makes me a better scientist, makes me more inquisitive. My belief in God grows the more I study science, the more I study physics, the more I study astronomy. So faith kind of like impels me to study science, and science also helps me grow in my faith. The more like faith helped me ask better questions, I would say. My faith helps me ask more deeper and more meaningful questions.
Do you see that change in your students from when they come in to when they leave, that more of appreciation of that? Or is it too early to tell?
And their families too, actually, their parents sometimes, parents come, and when we have parent meetings, they say, Father, like when my student comes and talks about your class and the physics class and the astronomy class taught by a priest, like, I'm just like very, very amazed that, and surprised, but in a good way, right? That this Catholic school, science and astronomy are being taught by a priest. That is, that speaks well about the church and well about the church's commitment to live the faith and to pursue science. Sometimes I get a little crazy people, saying, well, how can you, do this and do that? Like, how can you be teaching about, evolution and if you're a priest, right? That's not the church. And I have to try to, well, it's actually, the church, supports evolution and the development of sciences. So I try not to be too argumentative, but
right.
Some people tend to be a little emotional.
Good. So to end, I'd love you to tell, if you can, the story of the time Pope Francis talk to you about your vocation? Was it Francis or was it Benedict? I think it was Francis.
Oh, well, I met Benedict at the Vatican summer school.
Right. Well, this was an occasional thing. He was when the Pope was walking past and you shouted out at him.
Oh yeah, that was Pope Francis. That was just I was ordained in 2015. And I went to do the Camino Ignaciano, the way of Ignatius to Spain, and from there I went to see the Ignatian sites in Rome. And I was told by the Jesuits of the Vatican Radio that the Pope, every time he travels, when he returns, he goes to a chapel called Our Lady of the People of Rome. Am I saying it right? In the Santa Maria Maggiore. And he goes there and he does a short visit, a short prayer. And if I wanted to just see the Pope, I should be there between the time he lands and the time he gets to the Vatican. So it's like 3 hours window, right? So, okay, I took it. So another friend of mine, another Jesuit, and we put ourselves out there, and they started to, block, the part of the church, many people did not know what was happening, but I know, right? We know, we had the insight. So yes, suddenly we see the Pope walking by past the little barricade they put, the Pope walking by with a couple of his, how do you say, his guards, right? And people is just very quiet and very, oh my goodness, the Pope, I'm taking pictures and they don't know what to do. So when he was close by, I did yell using my coaching voice in Spanish. Your Holiness, I'm a Jesuit priest, just like you. I was just ordained. And then he comes by and then he says, well, that is your problem. That is your problem. Well, then I asked him, I had the boldness to ask, I was just ordained. Can I pray for you? He always asking people to pray for him, right? Can I pray for you? He did not get closer, but he bowed a little. So I prayed for him and I gave him a blessing. Sadly, if somebody was taking pictures, I never got a hold of them. I was like, either I'm going to talk to the Pope or take pictures of the Pope. So I talked to the Pope. So I don't have any picture of that encounter, but
you've got a great story.
Got a great story of it. Yeah, but that was it. That is your problem. And then he said, well, thank you for your prayers and thank you for your vocation.
All right. And thank you for being part of this and sharing your stories with us. And we'll see you all next month on a full moon. Thanks, everybody, for joining.
Yeah, enjoy the eclipse, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone. There's the parrot.
Bye, JP. Bye, JP.
Bye. Sorry, I'm just looking here at the chat what people wrote because I didn't see those before.
Thank you.
A lot of random comments from me.
The random telescope. The UFOs. The comments.
Yeah, we've had a whole discussion about that, the War on the Astronomical Society.
Okay. All right. Cool.
All right. Thank you, JP.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
See you later. Bye.